Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So I wanted to go over some of the racing over the last couple of days, talk about a few horses that caught my eye. There will be another video coming as well for the handicap marks. Obviously the Sunday races will not be included in this week, so King George Day, etc. Those handicap marks have not been allocated yet. But it's from the last Sunday and the last week of racing. There wasn't much, so there might not be too much to talk about in that video. But I want to talk about a few that caught my eye over the last few days. Interesting rides or just, poor placement, I felt. Or a horse that I think will do much better when he returns to a stiffer track. So we'll start off with Al Dancer. Now, Al Dancer, as you know, caught my eye when he finished good fourth at Sandown in the Pertemps qualifier. He ran at Chepstow recently on Monday, and he disappointed. He got well beat back in fifth. But I do think the soft ground would have been against him. I do think he's a better horse on good ground, and he's got so much in hand over the handicap in terms of the Pertemps final. If he was to run in the Pertemps final, I think at the moment he'd be carrying 11 stone 12, and he's got like probably 15 pound that he could potentially drop and still get in the Pertemps final. And if you want to win a Pertemps final, dropping in the handicap's not always a bad thing. He ran at the weekend, he ran on Monday. I get my days all mixed up at the moment, aren't they, because of the Christmas holidays. He ran in this race here for just 10 grand. Now, this was a perfect race to run him, get him well beat, get him dropped in the handicap, and return to Cheltenham in the future in the Pertemps final off a lower mark and see how they get on. He's just one, I'm not really keen on him for the Pertemps final, but I'm interested to see maybe he gets another run and just to see if he does turn up in the Pertemps final off a significantly lower mark than what he was at the beginning of this season. Second horse I want to talk about is Potter's Corner, who ran well for, a reasonable amount of the Welsh national trip before getting tired and pulling up. I thought, I hoped he would run a big race. He didn't, but you have to be looking at. He's now ran. What's he run now? Going into the race, he'd run over 3 mile 6 twice, 3 mile once, and 3 mile already this season. What's that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 and a half miles already before running in a Welsh national, which is an attritional race. I thought their placement this year has been really disappointing, continually running over trips and distances on ground that he didn't want. They've turned up to the Welsh national just completely spent already, and I thought that was a really disappointing placement. You do have to wonder what the ethos is behind running this horse multiple times, over long distance trips, especially with the owners. This racehorse club, I don't agree with it. I think you're not getting anything out of it, in my opinion, if you buy a share. Just to say you've had a runner in a Welsh national, you didn't own it. You owned like that much of it. I don't get these syndicates. I think they're a bit of a con, to be honest. But that's just my opinion. So, in terms of going forward, Potter's Corner's dropped off my list now. I'm not interested in him going forward. The Welsh National would have been the only race I was interested in for him, and he disappointed in it. Let's talk very briefly about Isio. I thought that was very impressive, winning the juvenile at Kempton. He'll be back, obviously, for the Adonis. As the French horse in the Adonis, they're always interesting. I'm hoping that Nicky Henderson might have a newcomer that's French bred in the Adonis. Both Henderson and Nichols seem to do that. They target this race with a French bred newcomer or one that's come from France. They go and win it, and he turns up second or third favourite for the Triumph Hurdle. He won't turn up favourite because Phil Daw will be favourite, and that form looks rock solid. Edward Stone won at Kempton. He won nicely enough. He didn't do anything more than he should have done. He was getting, I think, £10 and £15 twice from his two rivals. If it had been a handicap, that's how much weight he would have been given to them. He won it as expected. He got shortened for the Arkle, wrongly in my opinion. I don't think he did anything to deserve to being shortened for the Arkle. Okay, he won another race. I do think some of these the odds getting shortened for winning races that they should do, I think it's ridiculous personally. I wouldn't be touching Edwardstone for the Arkle. I do think he's a very, very good handicapper. I don't think he's going to be Arkle quality. I think Fernie Hollow is definitely the one to beat still in that race. Moving on to a couple here that I thought were interesting going forward. Kitty's Light at 3 Mile at Kempton. Kempton is I always say it works out to be 2.5 mile. So for 2.5 mile for Kitty's Light, nowhere near far enough. Nowhere near far enough, and yet he still ran a really good race for 4th. Never got involved, was never going to win, but he's ran on quite strongly, as he always does, over 3 Mile at Kempton. You would imagine that the plan is the return of the Bet365 Gold Cup at Sandown. They should get the better going that the connections feel they want, and it'll be interesting to see if the handicapper drops him for that run. Another horse that was disappointing was Captain Or. I thought Ellis Collier gave it the wrong ride. Personally, he has never gone from the front. He's always been held up. He always runs his best races when held up or at worst, at closest mid-division. They went forward with him. They took on their other horse. Their other horse won the race. You always have to be a little bit suspect when the trainer's horse also wins the race and your selection gets a completely different ride to normal. Captain Orr's going to drop again in the handicap. I don't want to give up on him. I think they felt they had a horse that would win it, Christian Williams, so felt they could get Captain Orr's mark dropped a little bit more, and they're going to go in soon, so don't give up on Captain Orr. The next horse I want to talk about is Ahoy Senor. Now, going into the Cheltenham Novices, or the Feltham, I think it's called the Cheltenham Novices now, isn't it? I really liked Brave Man's Game, and he won the race. But as I've mentioned in a previous video, I will not be backing him for the, I don't know what it's called now. The RSA Chase is what I'm going to call it. The 3 Mile Novice Handicap Chase at the Cheltenham Festival. Novice Chase at the Cheltenham Festival. I won't be backing him, as I mentioned. The form of the winners is really poor in the RSA Chase. That said, the form of the horses that finished 2nd and 3rd in the RSA Chase is actually quite good. In the last 10 years, they've had 6 runners, 3 thirds, a 2nd, and 2 winners from those. Top of the Game finished 2nd, and Bobsworth finished 3rd in the Calto Star Novices. Now, why is that? As I mentioned for Kitty's Light, Kempton is more of a speed track. It doesn't bring their stamina into play. And I think that's what was lacking for Ahoy Senor. He just has so much stamina, I feel. And you can almost see that by where they started. They started over 2.5, and very quickly they were up to 3 mile. 2.5, 3 mile. It didn't take them long to get up to the 3 mile trip, despite running well or even winning races, And he won at Newbury over 3 mile. That was his most impressive performance over fences. And he won at Aintree over 3 mile. Both of those are also left-handed, unlike Kempton, which is right-handed. I think going back left-handed at a track like Cheltenham will really suit him. It will bring his stamina into play more. I just think he got out-kicked by Brave Man's Game, who was impressive. Don't get me wrong, he was very impressive on the day in that race. I don't want him for the RSA Chase. I do wonder whether his stamina will be found out. Also, if you look at Brave Man's Game, his career, they've slowly gone up in trip. They haven't gone, start at 2.5 and then we're going to go straight to 3 mile. Almost suggesting as well that the trainer doesn't feel he definitely wants the step up in trip. He definitely wants the Gold Cup trip. Whereas Ahoy Senor has done the complete opposite. They've gone very quickly up to 3 mile. He wants the stamina, the stamina events. I think they might end up in the Reynolds-Town. Now, I know that is right-handed, but at least it's at Ascot over 3 mile, which I think will suit him. Or they could go to Warwick, which they had been talking about initially. That could come a bit soon. That's only, I think it's about 18 or 19 days from now. So it might come a bit soon for Ahoy Senor. They wanted to give him 1, maybe 2 runs. I think they will try to turn up to the Cheltenham Festival off the back of a win. So I think they will give him another run. But Hoisinor, I think he drifted to 8s or 9s for the RSA chase, and especially with Galopin de Champs winning comfortably today, when he didn't beat anything, in my opinion. Well, he didn't beat anything, and won as expected. I think a Hoisinor is a good bet in the RSA chase. I think the stamina will suit him, and he could be very, very hard to pass. And I think he's going to be the number 1 British horse rather than Brave Man's Game. Maybe he does have Galopin de Champs to beat, but I'm happy to take him on with a Hoisinor at the prices especially. And I think once we get the stamina, that's the big thing with a Hoisinor, the stamina. He got outkicked. It wasn't a race that suited him. You could almost say, look at his race at Carlisle. He was possibly going to get beat by Fiddler on the Roof. Fiddler on the Roof? I think it was Fiddler on the Roof. He was possibly going to get beat by him. Over 2.5. It wasn't 3 mile again. He wants that 3 mile trip, and that really brings out the best in him. So today we had the Savills Chase at Leopardstown, won by Galvin, who ran down A Plus Tard and Kemboy late on. For me, I felt A Plus Tard going into the race. The only doubt I had about A Plus Tard was his stamina. And I think Galvin outstayed him today. And I think that's what Manila Indo can do again. And similar to a Hoisinor and even Kitty's Light, Manila Indo ran at Kempton. Kempton is not a stamina track. Kempton is a speed track. I always say it works out 2.5 mile-ish. So considering he's won an Albert Bartlett, he's won an RSA chase, second in an RSA chase, and won a Gold Cup at Cheltenham, where the stamina is brought in, pulling up at Kempton because he found it too quick. There was nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. When he goes back to Cheltenham, we know he's going to be primed for that. 2 wins and a second at the Cheltenham Festival. He's 10-1 for the Gold Cup. I think he'll reverse the form, or I think he'll beat Galvin. I don't think he's an issue. I think he will retain or confirm the places with A Plus Tard. And looking further down, like Chantry House, I don't think is good enough. Envoy Lens definitely not going to go there. I think 10-1 about Manila Indo is a really good bet right now. So I will be having a bet on Manila Indo for the Gold Cup. Final 2 horses I want to talk about both ran in the Temps qualifier today at Leopardstown, and they both caught my eye. Dunboyne for a couple of reasons. Dunboyne, I don't think Jack Kennedy really got too serious on him. He's run a nice race. He's qualified. He finished 5th. After jumping the last, Jack didn't really do a lot. Just made sure he finished in the top 6 position. He was also trained by Gordon Elliott. Now, this is an interesting one for me. He was trained by Gordon Elliott, and Gordon Elliott also had Ard Hill down at the bottom as a reserve. Ard Hill was obviously super impressive at Ascot, I think it was, and would have gone into that race as one of the favourites. And I think Ard Hill was actually 16-1 favourite for the Temps final. Why didn't Gordon Elliott run him in that race? Why did he not take one of his 2 out for any reason they can imagine and run him? Was it because he felt his 2 both had good chances of qualifying with the final in mind? Duffel Coat ran disappointingly, but Dunboyne did qualify, and just a couple of things adding together, the trainer not taking one of them out for Ard Hill, Dunboyne not being given a hard race, has now qualified. I think Mrs. Milner actually finished 4th in this race last year before going on to win the final. So it is a race that you don't have to win this, and then you can go on to win the final. The second horse we have to look at, it's an obvious one, was Winter Fog. Obviously owned by the same people who owned the Shunter. They went forward on only his second start over this sort of trip. He just faded late on. He's qualified. He finished 2nd. He's qualified. It would not surprise me if they can go and win a couple of races now and turn up to the final in really good form and we don't know how far ahead this horse is of its mark. This might have not been the day. Would you want to win a Pertemps qualifier at Leopardstown? That's, I don't even know what it was worth. I don't think it was too much. Let's have a look. Just waiting for it to load. It was worth 15,000. So it's not a bad pot. It's worth 15,000 to the winner. Pertemps final is worth more. And it's a race at the Cheltenham Festival, which I'm sure they'd love to win. So he's more interesting going forward. I'm definitely interested to see where he ends up. And I definitely think Winterfog will win a race soon. Whether they save him straight for the Pertemps final now, we will see. So there's a few thoughts about some of the horses over the last few days. I'm going to have 2 bets out of all of this that I've mentioned right now, and they will be a Hoisinor for the RSA Chase. I'm trying to think what it's called. The Turner Novices, I think it's called now. And Manila Indo for the Gold Cup. I think both of them can run better once they both go to tracks that will suit them and not at Kempton. Thanks for listening. Hope you've had a great Christmas. Next thing is New Year. And then we've got New Year's Day racing at Cheltenham, which should be fun.